Well, hello and welcome to today's webcast, which is Negotiating the Best Price Secrets from a Sales Professional. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Product Management here at Alpha Software, and I am pleased to present our VP of Sales, Morris Porter, who today is going to give you some advice on getting the best deals and some other key pieces of information. Let me go ahead and take you off mute, Morris. Hello, Morris. Are you there?
I am here, Dave. Ready to begin?
We are ready to begin, and I can see your screen, so let's get going.
We'll get going. Well, great. Well, first off, I just want to thank everybody for taking time out of their busy day to attend our webinar on negotiation. I think to some degree I'll probably regret sharing some of my secrets with you today, as some of us might be negotiating your Alpha Anywhere agreements at some point in the future. But that's life. For those of you who I haven't met yet, my name is Morris Porter, and I run Alpha Sales and Service Team. My background is in selling software as a service, and I've done that for over 20 years at startups you've never heard of and at companies that you know, such as Cisco and Citrix. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank a couple of people. First off, I want to thank Andy Groden, our VP of Marketing, for shaming me into this session. And, of course, kudos to Dave McCormick, our VP of Product Management, who's our host today. He always does an amazing job on these sessions, hosting and coordinate them. So thanks to Dave for making this run like a well-oiled machine. So negotiating the best price. While our topic today is negotiation, please keep in mind that it would be quite a challenge to teach all of you to be killer negotiators in 30 minutes or less. We can, however, provide you with some solid tips and proven tactics to make you feel a little bit more comfortable in these discussions with prospective vendor partners. My goal today is I want to share some thoughts on negotiating and on evaluating the rapid web, desktop, and mobile application development space as a whole. Again, while I'm not going to be totally comprehensive here, I think it'll give you a good foundation for getting started. And if you have any questions post-session, just email me or call me, and I'll be happy to continue the conversation one-on-one. My contact information will be on the final slide of the presentation, so if you want to figure out how to harass me post-session, you got to sit through the whole thing to get that information. And for those of you that know me well, despite the fact that there's the word price in the title, this really is about value, not price, as I'll share later on. Before we get started here, I'd be remiss in not giving you a public service announcement about DevCon 2017, which is our worldwide developers conference happening in late October this year. I noticed some of the attendees have already registered, and I'll be excited to meet you again at the conference. However, if you haven't registered yet and you're committed to Alpha, you just must attend DevCon. You simply must attend. You'll be with Alpha developers of all levels of experience and coming from 6 different continents. You'll be privy to details about our product direction and the new parts of the suite. You're going to hear Alpha customers talk about what works for them and just a whole lot more. It's being held in Newport, Rhode Island this year. First time for us in that location. It's an absolutely beautiful venue. In fact, I would encourage you, if you come, bring your significant other and have them hang out at the hotel, walk around town. It's going to be a great venue, and all the true alcoholics are going to be there. And perhaps we can negotiate the pricing in terms of your attendance at this DevCon, since you'll be equipped for that after this session. All right, let's move on to negotiating. So I have this quote. Hopefully you can all see it. I have this quote from Gandhi, which I think is a great way to frame a conversation around negotiation. And it's really so true. In the end, you are a co-conspirator in giving away your self-respect. It's an important concept to keep in mind during any negotiations that you're involved in. Even great negotiators walk away with the short end of the stick once in a while. You can't win them all. This is your webinar, so please feel free to submit questions through the portal if you have them. And like I said, we can talk post-session at some point. You'll have my contact info at the end.
That's right. If I could just add to that, just go ahead and type them into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel, and I'll be monitoring them here. And I might even interrupt Morris in the middle, but certainly I'll save them for the end otherwise.
Perfect. Yep, please do. All right. So here are some good high-level tips that have served me well in my 20-plus years of selling software as a service and running different businesses. So first of all, don't be nervous. While your web, mobile, and desktop application platform is important to your business, so you wouldn't be on this webinar today, we're not talking about life and death discussions here. Focus on driving your negotiations towards a win-win outcome. I know that's easier said than done, but I got to tell you, early on in my career, I used to just try and close the deal, period. And I found out the hard way that, if you close a lose-win deal or a win-lose deal, they never work out in the end. They always unravel somehow. And I could bore you with countless stories where, I've browbeated some customer, got them in at a price that was too high or under unfavorable terms. It's just not worth it, folks. And it's not worth it whether you're on the winning end or the losing end. You really want to have win-win negotiations because in the end, you're building a partnership as opposed to having an adversarial process. Next, you want to work toward your ultimate goal. The negotiation is a means to an end. It's not an end in and of itself. Keep your eyes on the prize. A lot of people just get totally wrapped up in the drama of the negotiation. In fact, for those of you that might be car enthusiasts, I've attended a few auto auctions of classic cars in my time, and it's amazing how many people get auction fever. They see a car up. I saw a guy one time bidding on a mid-60s Corvette. It was probably worth $50,000 at the time, but two guys got into it, and the drama, and their blood pressure went up, and before you knew it, somebody paid $85,000 for a $50,000 car. So don't get wrapped up in the drama of the negotiation. You see on the slide, WIIFM, WIIFH, what does that mean? It means what's in it for me or what's in it for him or her. If you align the goals of all the participants in the negotiation, that can really go a long way in driving a successful conversation. People will work toward a negotiation goal which has personal impact. Make sure your vendor partner, especially Alpha, is able to achieve a level of profit. If that is not the case, you're going to run the risk of making the deal difficult for the vendor. You also want them to be fiscally healthy so that they're around to service you post-sale. Again, using that example with the Corvette, the last vehicle I bought, whenever I go to buy a vehicle, I don't want to get ripped off. I just want to pay a fair price. I don't want to steal it because I do want that dealer to be around when I need an oil change or when something breaks or the nav system stops working. So, yeah, you want to fight for the best possible price, but you do want there to be some profit in there for your vendor partner because otherwise they may not be around to help you post-sale. Lastly, negotiation doesn't need to get personal, although it sometimes has personal impacts. If anyone in the audience has ever boxed before, I think boxing, I've done a couple of rounds myself. I think boxing is a great example of how you can get into a tussle without it being personal. Trust me, you'll feel better and you'll have much more positive outcomes if you don't make your negotiation personal. Okay. Keep the negotiation in context. Will your life end if you don't do the deal? Speaking of not doing the deal, you should always be prepared to walk away. Again, I know that's easier said than done, but if you aren't prepared to walk away, you're likely going to make a suboptimal deal unless you're one of those rare sharks who can pull it off. I know I've never been able to do that. You really want to focus on the big picture, not just the negotiation itself. Don't forget why you're in this in the first place. And again, in a lengthy multi-vendor evaluation for a platform, that again, easier said than done, but you really want to stay focused on what is the goal of the negotiation. I think one of the most important lessons to learn is total cost of ownership. Total cost of ownership is an important lesson to learn, and it teaches you not to just focus on price. A $200 smartphone that isn't so smart is no bargain compared to the $500 iPhone that does everything you need it to do. There is a real difference between, say, a TAG Heuer timepiece that costs $5,000 and a Casio watch that costs $29.95. I love the quote from Ben Franklin, which some of you probably know: "The bitterness of poor quality remains long after the sweetness of low price is forgotten." In your negotiations, just try and find the balance between cost and the richness of functionality. Having fun with your negotiation can dramatically impact your results. In fact, that's how I learned how to negotiate. I've always treated it like a game, and it just makes the process easier. The stakes become lower, and there's just less anxiety in the process. I treat every deal like I'm playing, those of you familiar with the board game Monopoly, I treat every deal like I'm playing Monopoly with my kids. Having the negotiation in my mind be theoretical that way just puts me in a place where I feel more comfortable, which greatly increases my chance for success. Do your homework. Like painting your home, in a negotiation, the prep work is very important. In fact, just like the example of painting, in absence of prep, the painting is always going to have a suboptimal outcome. Negotiation of an agreement is very similar. The other guy or gal will do their homework, so you'll want to do yours. Check with other customers who are using the vendor partner. Find out what's important to you and make it clear in the discussions with that prospective vendor partner. Look the individual up on LinkedIn to find some common ground. Be prepared, I think this is one of the most important points I'm going to make. Be prepared to give something up to receive something you want. You're probably used to hearing it in the reverse, which is don't give a concession without getting something in return, and that comes up later in the discussion. Another key component of negotiation is your follow-up. Let's say you've closed an agreement and things are looking great. I think the best practice that is really important that I follow is I always memorialize an agreement that I make with somebody by putting it in writing to ensure that everyone knows what they agreed to. It seems simple, but many people do forget this step, and they end up losing out as a result. Everybody forgets the deal a week after it's done. You do so many of them, it's just a fact of life. Do that soon. Send out an email, recap the deal right afterwards so that nobody gets deal remorse. And per my earlier point, in discussing concessions, don't give something away for nothing. All right, pricing criteria. I just want to talk about what is important in pricing for a rapid mobile application development platform. And I'm talking generically here. I'm not necessarily going to refer to Alpha because this is more of a thought leadership discussion than a sales job on Alpha. If you want to be sold on Alpha, call me after the meeting. Happy to do it. Predictability, in my mind, is really key to selecting a successful rapid mobile and web development platform. By predictability, what I'm talking about is you as the customer having the ability to understand what your running costs are on an annual basis. It's huge. I mean, I can't tell you how many businesses I've been involved in where people ended up buying with the company I was with if we had the really predictable pricing model, because it just takes the anxiety out of running with that vendor. I'm going to give Alpha Anywhere some well-deserved kudos here. Once you've selected a pricing plan and the accompanying options, you can literally calculate your Alpha Anywhere costs on the back of an envelope. And we've done that on purpose. We do that because we want our customers to feel comfortable, confident, and that they can grow with Alpha. Many of our competitors use things like computer objects and complexity of the application, number of applications, and all sorts of other factors to compute their costs. There is virtually no way, unless you have a crystal ball, that you're going to predict what that service is going to cost you in the future. Gartner and Forrester, the two analyst firms, routinely recognize Alpha Anywhere for its transparency of cost and the simplicity of the business model. Be mindful of these complex calculations and watch the fine print closely as you're negotiating your deals. And don't be afraid to ask the vendor why as well as how. A good vendor who is confident in his or her vendor partner, who is confident in his or her pricing schema, will be comfortable having that conversation with you. You do want to plan for the future by making certain that your platform provider will grow with your business. I'm talking about this from a cost perspective as opposed to a technology perspective. The last thing you want to have happen is to have your applications become highly successful and you become a victim of your own success. Talk to your provider about your needs today, but also what you might expect in the future. Taking that simple step at the beginning of the relationship can save you lots of heartache later on, as you do not want to make changes in the future if you can avoid it. If you find a platform that you love, whether it's Alpha or somebody else, you don't want to have to change it because you weren't minding your P's and Q's at the beginning of the conversation. As an example, part of our sales discovery process here at Alpha is to ask our prospective customers about their goals, not just today, but in the next 5 years. If your vendor partner doesn't ask you that question, you might want to ask them the question about how they'll scale with you in the coming years. Of course, a big part of negotiating successfully is cross-shopping other platforms, both from a capability standpoint and also a cost standpoint. Many of our customers, as I mentioned before, consult Gartner and Forrester, and they build a long list of platforms and then slim down the list to a short list of two to four vendor partners. I think that's a great way to get perspective on the pricing and functionality, as when you examine platforms in a vacuum, you can really run into inappropriate conclusions. I'm going to give you a quick real-life example. We worked with a company on the West Coast, who shall remain nameless, that was looking at, I want to say, 8 platforms. We were one of them. They narrowed it down to 2, and they decided they were going to have a shootout. The other platform went first with a proof of concept process, and then we never heard from them again. I said, what's going on? So the salesperson got them on the phone. We got the customer on the line, and they said, oh, we're going with the other company. Well, we said, well, why is that? Well, we were happy with them. We liked what they had to say, so we're just going to go forward. So the buyer was actually being lazy. So, we argued in favor of doing our proof of concept, and we got ourselves in there, and I'm sure you know how the story is going to end. We actually beat the other provider in a big way. In fact, they polled the developers, and Alpha was by far the favorite, 70 to 30. So if you're only looking at one provider or one vendor, it's really hard to get perspective. So I'm a big proponent of developing a standards list, which shows the attributes that are crucial, that are nice to have, and then potentially useful. So in other words, prioritize them. Evaluating other platforms, even if your mind is largely made up, will help you gain important perspective on pricing, terms, and capabilities. Again, don't simply focus on price. Although it's important, you really want to consider the value to you. All right, what is this slide? You're looking at it saying it looks like a marketing slide. It sort of is. This slide actually illustrates a potential requirements document that you might prepare in advance of your search for a web, mobile, and desktop application platform. While this happens to be an Alpha software piece of material, it shows you how you might segment and prioritize your list. My advice, be upfront with your potential vendor partners and share your list of requirements early in the process. If you're working with a salesperson who is a solution salesperson, it's going to make a big difference in the quality of the conversation. Talking about this stuff up front is going to allow you to fail providers who cannot achieve your goals. And I think as all of you know, whether it be in business or evaluating platforms, it's better to fail fast than to have a vendor drop out after a lengthy process. Take the time to do an internal examination of what your ideal platform looks like and figure out which aspects of functionality you can afford to pass up. Be objective and don't fall in love with any one provider, unless, of course, it's Alpha Anywhere. Be certain that you understand which special skills each vendor brings to the task. And again, it's simple, but I'm going to say it anyway. If you don't understand, don't be afraid to ask. In fact, it's funny. If you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, one of the top needs, or one of the top hierarchy, in the top hierarchy of needs that people have is a fear of being embarrassed, a need to not be embarrassed. People will endure hunger, financial pain, physical pain, all in the name of not embarrassing themselves. I have to tell you, when you're in a negotiation, you have to throw that all away, toss it to the curb. If you don't understand something, don't be afraid to ask the vendor partner to repeat it many times if necessary. All right, you've put your list together. Now is the time to go internally and get buy-in before venturing out to talk to potential vendor partners. Otherwise, you'll just be wasting time and you're going to have to go through this process all over again. So why do customers choose a specific platform? Here we're showing an illustrated, here we're showing a simpler approach to building out your standards for review with prospective vendors. Not every company needs to have a, hub and spoke 50 attribute list. They just need some simple things. And depending on your situation, this might be sufficient for you to go forward with engaging potential vendors. I'm sure some of you on the line probably came to Alpha with such a list, and you're now Alpha Anywhere customers. Don't get analysis paralysis in your search process. Stay focused on the big picture, as I mentioned earlier. One tip, the way that a vendor partner treats you during the sales process is usually a peek into how they will treat you later on as a customer. And that's true, and I will tell you a quick story. I was at a company that was shopping for a CRM system, a customer relations management system. And we looked at 5 systems, narrowed it down to 3, got it down to 2, and both leading companies at the time, both very, very strong businesses. What ended up happening, it was sort of like, neck and neck race, nose to the finish line. During this tail end of the process, the evaluation process, one of the providers got really impatient with us, and they did a webinar for our benefit, sort of like this, and it just didn't work. I think they were using WebEx, and it got stuck, and all they did was just complain about it. They blamed us for not having enough bandwidth. We weren't asking the right questions. I was shocked. We ended up going with the other vendor, who arguably in the end, I think in retrospect, had a less superior product. However, because they treated us humanely and treated us with respect, it was really, it was a good relationship, and we had a good run with that product, like I said, even though it wasn't the top product in the end, I think. Good vendor, here's another point that I think is important, whether you're selling or being sold to, and that is that good vendor partners will hold you accountable as part of the process. I know that sounds counterintuitive because you're the customer, but it is an important part of the evaluation and negotiation process, and it's going to show your vendor partner that you are serious. And showing that you're serious is going to improve your odds of striking a win-win deal. Again, real quick story, worked with a customer, seemed real serious, wanted to make a big purchase. However, never took our trial, didn't ask any questions. I suggested he watch a video. I sent him a white paper, never looked at anything. And it was actually the sales rep was running it, and I was helping the sales rep with the deal. And we saw that he never looked at the video, never read the white paper. I told the sales rep, it's not going to close. Don't work with this guy anymore. Don't put any energy into it. Just do the minimum and see what happens. And the sales rep put his heart and soul into the deal, counted on it for forecasting. I think he neglected other deals because he expected this big one to close. And you know what happened? They never closed. They walked away. Come on, slides. There we go. You can't ignore the value of third-party testimonials in your examination. Such accolades can be indicative of how customer-centric and leading-edge a vendor might be. And I know there's some of you out there that are cynical, and you might be wary of these types of using these statements in your buying decision. But I really feel it's important that you have some third-party validation that backs up your choice of a partner vendor. Recognition from respected publications and thought leaders will help you give the additional comfort, and frankly, if you have a boss, a little bit of CYA as you formulate your short list of potential vendor partners. Speaking of third-party validation, There is nothing so impressive, at least to other sales reps, as a prospective vendor partner having a list of logos, a large list of logos from companies you recognize, as well as others that you might not recognize. Extra bonus points should be given for companies that are in your vertical business space or are similar to your organization in other ways. Again, some might take these customer testimonials with a grain of salt, but it is an important validation point that the vendor can partner with its customers, keep them happy, and that many customers have chosen them in a similar evaluation. I would also suggest not to be afraid to ask for customer references in your vendor review. And I probably don't have to say this, but needless to say, run away from any prospective vendor partner who balks at providing customer references. I've heard the excuses that it's privacy, I don't want to disturb my customers. It's crap. If they want your business, they'll give you references. Last piece here, or closing in on the end. Focusing on your long-term goals is important, and I know one of our important evaluation criteria when customers look at us is, does my vendor partner have professional services to help me if I need it? Will they be a supportive partner by ensuring that my team is set up for success via training, support services, and contract development? Are the costs reasonable? And how quickly and in a quality way can they do the job? We have found here at Alpha that having professional services are important to prospective customers. Be certain that everyone on your shortlist can fulfill this requirement. And I can tell you with confidence, everybody wants to know that you have it. Not everybody takes advantage of it, but it's always a question we get asked, and it definitely brings comfort to our customers as they evaluate us in comparison with other companies. All right, don't be afraid to ask to see sample applications. Again, if a potential vendor partner is confident in their offering, they will have sample applications available for your examination. All right. Thank you for your attention. That's the presentation. I hope that you found some value in this discussion. My contact information is up there. If you have any questions post-meeting, love to hear from you. If you're interested in increasing your account with Alpha, I'd love to hear from you. And if you have some rants or raves about the company, I'd love to hear from you as well.
Great. So if anyone has questions at this time, go ahead and type them into the questions box so they go to Webinar Control Panel. Morris, I have one quick question. Is that you on that hill underneath all those stars? It's a great picture.
Yeah, it's not me, but it felt like me last month. We had a really good, strong sales month, so excellent. That was me last month. This month, we're not so much, but we're working on it this summer. Excellent.
Great. Well, Morris, thank you very much for presenting. If anyone does have any questions for Morris, just send an email to Morris, M-O-R-R-I-S, at alphasoftware.com. Of course, you can always send general questions to guides, G-U-I-D-E-S, at alphasoftware.com. Morris, thanks again for presenting, and I want to thank everyone for attending. We hope to see you at a future webinar. Take care and have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.